Welcome back to Choir with Knut, the show where I show you how to arrange a song for choir from start to finish. Last week, we arranged Grace Kelly, a song by British singer-songwriter Mika, for 3-part choir with piano accompaniment. This week, we're going to be doing another song by a British artist, this one being Valerie by Amy Winehouse. Valerie is an interesting song in that it's the last notable recording that Amy Winehouse did. And she did this with British producer Mark Ronson. Unlike Grace Kelly, I'm quite familiar with the song Valerie, and I'm really excited to be arranging it. As before, we're going to be arranging it for my imaginary Knut Community Choir, which is an SAB choir, so soprano, alto, baritone, and we're going to use a piano accompanist. So let's move over to my workstation and get started on arranging Valerie by Amy Winehouse and Mark Ronson. Valerie is an interesting song in that it's actually a cover. Amy Winehouse was not the first performer of this song. It was a cover, or it is a cover of a song that was released in 2006 by a band called the Zuttons, they're a band from Liverpool. And so this song is interesting in that you have many different versions on which you can base your arrangement. Now, the first version I heard was the Mark Ronson, Amy Winehouse version, and that is definitely the most famous version. Most likely the arrangement should be based on that version, but I think I've actually heard about 4 different versions of the song. So there's a lot of different versions to choose from, and it's a very good idea when you research to listen to each of them, have a think about what makes each version kind of stand on its own. What have they done in terms of instrumentation, tempo, counter melodies? Try and just pick out, anything you can use for your arrangement. You don't have to base it entirely on one version. You can pick and choose, as long as, of course, you pick stuff that will work. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm already fairly familiar with the Mark Ronson Amy Winehouse version, but I'm just going to search out, as I do with other songs, search out different versions. However, I'm not going to be looking exclusively at acapella versions. I'm going to just listen to a bunch of different recordings of the song and kind of give my thoughts about which one I think will be the most important one for my arrangement. Now, I've listened to a few versions of Valerie. I focused on the Zuttons, Mark Ronson and Amy Winehouse, and also Amy Winehouse did a solo version, which is different. And I think, just listening to the 3, I can kind of see why the Mark Ronson version is kind of considered to be the more popular one. It's more up-tempo than the others. It has it's a very well-produced song, which a lot of Mark Ronson's music is, and it has like this distinctive clave rhythm accompaniment part. Now, speaking as someone who studied quite a lot of Latin American music in my university days, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the use of clave music, of the clave rhythm in pop music. That being said, I'm probably gonna be basing my arrangement on this version because it kind of stuck out to me as a bit more distinctive. And of course, it's helped by the fact that it's sung by Amy Winehouse, who is a very distinctive performer. And it's just like a really fun song. And it's the sort of song that you want when it comes on, you want everyone to go like, yes, I love this song. And it brings them back to the late noughties. And they're like, yes, I remember going out and hearing the song. And it was a really fun song. But that being said, the other versions are certainly quite good. I thought it was interesting how the solo version of Amy Winehouse is actually closer to the Zuttons version. It's very stripped back. It's just a guitar, electric piano, bass, and some backing vocals. So it's like a really nice version to listen to. But yeah, I'm probably going to be basing my arrangement on the Mark Ronson version. Now I'm going to be looking for acapella and choral covers, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be quite a few. So let me just have a look through YouTube and I'll show you what I found. Or rather, I'll talk about what I found and link to them so you can check them out yourself. The first version I found was by a mixed a cappella group, and it used a soloist throughout, as a lot of a cappella groups do. And it got me thinking, do I want to use a soloist? And I think, yes, for the first verse, I do want to use a soloist. And I'll do as I did with, which song was it? Katy Perry, Teenage Dream. I'll start with an optional, probably alto solo. And then I think when I get to the pre-chorus, that's when I'll introduce ensemble voices singing the melody. There's a lot of really good stuff in this cover. They've reduced the clavier rhythm into a reggaeton rhythm, which is the doom 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 doom, which is just like the first half of the clavier rhythm. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm going to be picking out the rhythm from the Ronson version and using that instead. But they were using a lot of things that I liked. They had some good counter melodies. The oohs came in at the right place. They were dancing. They were having fun. The soloist was very good. And also at the end they kind of slowed the song down and did the sort of more of a choral ending, which is a nice way to end. Now, I'm going to be writing for mixed choir with piano, so I think a lot of the rhythmic work is going to be done by the piano. That being said, there are some nice like horn and string lines that it might be nice to have that done by the voices. So I'll see how I go about doing that. But check this version out. It's really quite good. Let's see what else I can find. The second version I found is an all-male a cappella group. They also use a soloist throughout, and this is more of a literal transcription arrangement. So they've pretty much put the Mark Ronson arrangement onto voices. I didn't notice anything that sounded like it wasn't from there to me, except this one was sung by a lead male singer, so I didn't check, but they might have changed the key to accommodate for the range, but who knows. Good. And I think what I would get from it, so transcription arrangements, you can kind of get the same from the original as you would from these versions. It's a good arrangement. They do have some like cool choreography going on. And what they did, which I liked, was they started with just the lead singer, the bass singer. So a lot of a cappella singers have the bass, they have a dedicated bass singer who might use like an octave switch to make sure that they can sing sort of below what bass singers would normally use. I don't think they use that for this one, but if you run an a cappella group, that's a normal way to get like a nice solid bass, is to have a dedicated bass singer who uses an octave switch on their microphone. Anyway, I like the idea of just starting with the lead voice and the bass line, and these guys had their beatboxer singing as well, but I think I'm probably gonna nick that for my arrangement and start with just the bass line. It's just a nice thing where you hold back in the beginning, you make sure that you save all the big bells and whistles for the chorus, because that's when that's the big important part of the song. So it's completely fine to just start with the bass line and voices. I think I did something similar in Grace Kelly. I can't quite remember. But yeah, just start with the bass, it's fine. And then add on harmonies one by one. And the audience will love it. They'll be like, yeah, they're building it, it's cool. And then you get to the chorus, and like, yes! And now it's like full force. I'll link to this one, and I'll see if I can find one more a cappella / choral version before I then talk about what I'm gonna do. So the last version, the last cover I found is something a bit different. It's a whole choir, like the audience is like a whole choir. There's like 1,000 people singing together. You should check this one out. This I've not seen anything quite like it. Now they're all singing backing parts. There's a lead singer, and these 1,000 people, the whole audience, are singing backing parts. It's a strange thing, and they're all doing like choreography and stuff. But there's some good stuff happening in the backing parts, and I think when I was listening to the Mark Ronson version, there were a few ideas I had already about backing parts, and they're here in this arrangement, so clearly another arranger had the same ideas. But yeah, I mean, it's done with band, and it's also pretty much a transcription arrangement with some like choral harmonies and stuff in the choruses. So this one's more like a novelty thing when it comes to my, the research I'm doing for my arrangement. But yeah, check it out. It's 1,000 people singing. They're all singing backing parts. But hey, at least you've got the whole audience singing along. So, I mean, it sounds great. So by looking at these different versions, I'm now starting to have some ideas for my version. And I think, as I said before, I will start with a soloist. So I'll set up the groove, and this is also the bit where you can have like a section that loops and loops and loops if you want to, have a transition. If you want your choir to kind of get in position to do some choreography, for instance, there'll be like the start is going to be setting up the song. So that maybe if you decide to have a soloist, that will give the soloist time to step forward. And then starting with just the bass and this singer. And then I'll probably start bringing in the rest of the singers around the pre-chorus, and then I'll transcribe some like of the important parts in the Mark Ronson version. So they'll be singing some of the brass stuff, and then for the chorus you'll want them all singing in choral harmony. And this is stuff I've seen in a lot of these versions, and it's kind of the same idea that I had when I listened to the song. So that's I think is a good way to go. And normally in the last verse, you have it all cut back to just the bass and singer again, which I think is a good idea. I think I'll probably have all the voices in unison there, singing quietly. That's quite a nice effect to have just the bass line and all the voices singing quietly in unison. Very effective. I do have to pick a key that everyone's going to be comfortable singing in, but that's something I'll work out once I've done my transcription, and I'll see what the range of the song is. But yeah, I'm just going to spend the next... it might take me about an hour maybe to transcribe the Mark Ronson song, maybe shorter. And then I'll talk about how I'm going to change that into an actual arrangement. So, the transcription's done, and what I'm thinking about now is what would be a good key to put this in. Because Amy Winehouse was a low female singer, and normally when you change a pop song into a choral arrangement, you can afford to put the key up a bit, because voices get a lot of support from each other, which you wouldn't get the same kind of support from just when you're just singing on your own. So normally you can afford to put pop music up a little bit. In the case of this song, it does go up to a B flat, which is a high alto note, but generally the high notes are Gs. So my instinct then is that can be put up so the high notes in most situations will be a B flat, as you'll be getting sort of into the belt range. And also, if you put a song that's in an alto key just directly into the male voice, it tends to be a bit too low. It tends to get a bit like low and muddy. Now, this imaginary community choir of mine doesn't have a tenor section. So, a tenor can usually sing in an alto key as long as it doesn't go like all the way up to B flats and Cs. But you don't want them to be, messing around at like C, low Cs and below, because it just becomes a bit muddy and it will probably disappear in the texture. So I'm going to put it up so that there's a bit in the pre-chorus that I kind of think will make a very nice baritone melody part, but it goes down to a G. But if I put it up by a minor third, then the low note will be a B flat, which I'll accept. It's not perfect, but that's kind of okay. That low note is a bit of a throwaway note in the original anyway, and it just ends up being less of a struggle for them to project, because you don't want them to be singing all the way down to a low G, because that's a bass note. I've already written in some instructions there, and I've kind of taken a lot of stuff from the track. Let's just quickly go through. So yeah, I immediately decided finger snaps on 2 and 4, loop until ready. Just giving the choir some time to set up, give the potential soloist a chance to step forward, all that sort of stuff. And now, sometimes, etc. This is just going to be optional solo, and I'll probably keep this as it is. And I've kind of written in the sort of stuff happening in the piano track on the piano part here. This is not an easy rhythm to play because they do this thing which, again, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine because they cross clave and you shouldn't do that. But that's what the track does, so that's part of the song. So you have this rhythm in the right hand and this rhythm in the left hand. You'd have to give the piano player this to learn in advance because it's going to be really awkward for most piano players to just do this on the day. But with practice, it can be done. All right, so this is the bit that I imagine will go in the baritone part, and you see that low G, it's going to get really muddy. So I'm going to put it up so that it's more like in an acceptable baritone range. And now the bit I've written in the sopranos here, that is the string line from the original. I might have to change that. I'm going to have to see what I do. I do like the idea of having some nice ooze in the background here. I might put it down the octave and then have the sopranos harmonize above. I don't want it too high because it's going to dominate the sound, and you don't want to put the baritones in a position where they are struggling to be heard because you have a soprano section singing high notes. They will kind of naturally ring out stronger anyway. So put them in a low range just so that your baritones don't have to struggle. But yeah, this is all fine. It's just the melody, boom, building up to the chorus, and this should have a crescendo on it, which I'll put in when I harmonize. And I've just written kind of block calm to myself here as a little note. I will block harmonize it. Now, in pop music, generally at the end of notes, they kind of end up being a bit short. So why don't you come on over, Valerie? It's just gonna be Valerie. But you might, just because you've got a section of people singing in harmony, you could extend that. So why don't you come on over, Valerie? And just have them sing on a nice chord. And I think I might just do that here and then try to integrate. I quite like the nice little string part in the background. So I might try to kind of combine the two so that you have the choir doing both the melody and the accompaniment, sort of, because they've got a lot of gap in the melody. And then I've got the piano doing the horn parts here. Again, this is a tricky rhythm and they cross clave, but it's what the track is. And I think the piano player should be fine doing this with a bit of practice. Chorus, great. I haven't quite decided what I want to do here. Maybe I'll do what I did in Grace Kelly, where I divide it up so that one section sings one bit, another section sings the next, and then they sing a bit together. We'll see. And again, I've got the string part here. Now you'll see, going a bit later here, it goes all the way up to like a G. Later on it goes up to top C. That's not going to be in my arrangement. I've written it down here just for myself as a reminder, but I'm not going to write the sopranos up to top C. That's just asking for trouble. It's not going to happen. So I'll have to think about some way of changing it, but that's easy enough. It's just an accompaniment part. I'm not married to it. I'll change it. Not a problem. But yeah, that's just, I'll divide this up, oohs and ahs, and this will probably stay the same because this is what the track is. So no need to change it. Goes back to the pre-chorus, chorus. I'm going to loop them because it saves time. And then we get into the last verse, which is the first verse. And here I know that I'm going to have them in unison octaves with just this bass part. Because it's just going to be like a nice contrast. The song is quite like loud and brash from start to finish, so you need to kind of try and integrate some dynamics even into the loud songs. You can afford to do that. Another thing that Voices does well, apart from the words and the fact that they can sing in harmony, is that they've got great dynamic range. You can get Voices singing really loudly and really softly, and they've got a lot of span. Well, at least they have the potential for a lot of span. It depends on the experience of the singers, of course. But yeah, if you've got something that will end up being sort of mid-rangey like this, just play with the dynamics. Think about them while you arrange. I see a lot of arrangers seem to kind of put dynamics in as an afterthought, or like you get a score and there's no dynamics at all, and it's such a missed opportunity. Think about the dynamics. Write in, I mean, even here I've just written in P, reminder to myself, this section is going to be quiet. Just make it something you plan. You can do a dynamics graph like I've seen before. I'm not going to do it for this song because I've kind of already decided what I want, but ideally you want a dynamics graph that has a large span of dynamics. Well, you know, as long as it's appropriate for the song, of course. But you know, it's one of those tools that, you know, you got to use it. You got to use it. Right. Anyway, that's all fine. And then going back into what we had before, I've just copied this from earlier in the song. I will probably have to do something a little different here because this will be the third time this comes and it can't just be the same every time. But again, that's something I'll work out while I'm arranging. Once I get going, I'll get inspired, I'll get ideas, and, you know, I'll just figure out something that'll, you know, make it different from the version that I had earlier. Simple enough. But yeah, so then you got the double chorus to end, and I thought here might be a good place to have, maybe not exactly a canon, but just to have people sing Valerie, 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 and then together. Something like that. You know, it's something that's really simple, but it gives all the parts something fun to do. And it also means that you've got something that's different from what's come before. You could also potentially have this as sort of a big unison clap-along chorus, but I'm not sure if I think Valerie is the best fit for that because there are such big gaps in the melody in the chorus, and you don't want like huge gaps in an acapella chorus. So something else. Again, I'll probably think about it while I'm arranging. But yeah, and then the ending, I'll work it out when I'm arranging. I've just kind of written in this temporary solution, but we'll see what I do. So I'm just going to go ahead and arrange this now, and afterwards I'll talk about what I've done and why I chose to do it. All right, I think I'm done with my arrangements. So let's have a look and see what I've done. So at the beginning, I haven't really done much. I mean, I've put it in a new key, the key of G flat major, everyone's favorite key. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty simple stuff. It's just the bass line and the one singer. And it's not until here, the pre-chorus, where I've then added in some oohs. Now, I've had everyone doing finger snaps up till this point, but I thought, let's just stop it here, because you want to get some contrast. And once I get to the chorus, I'll want them to do hand claps. But I don't want there to be like constant body percussion, because it can be a bit tiring to do a lot of body percussion. So right here, baritones do the melody and sopranos, altos just harmonize. And yeah, the piano's just playing the part that I transcribed from the track. And that just goes on until this phrase, why don't you come on over, where I switch it to the soprano. So now the altos and baritones are harmonizing. This is just to create some contrast. I mean, I could easily have had the baritones do this whole section, but I like to kind of pass things between sections and make sure that everyone gets something fun to do. So sopranos here get a bit of the melody, stop making a fool out of me, and why don't you come on over Valerie is choral style harmonies. And here we have this nice descending bass line going into the chorus, and I want everyone to be quite loud and do hand claps on 2 and 4. And again, when you do body percussion, you can just write down like this, hand claps on 2 and 4. You don't need to, write in any note heads or anything. This will do. So here, because there are huge gaps in the melody, I thought, well, it'll be nice to have some sort of interjection happening. The sopranos have the melody, and then I thought, well, the other parts, they're just harmonizing. So how about they do an interjection just like this? So they just do a little descending line in thirds, and you get a little bit of interest. And the next phrase, same thing. Sopranos sing the melody, altos, baritones harmonize, and then they do this same interjection. So it's like you're just using the same material, just up a step. The song Valerie is very simple harmonically, so I didn't really have to, do anything particularly outrageous. It's just done in thirds and descending like this. And then it happens again. It's pretty much the same thing as before. And then we get to verse 2. And here, I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting. So we start by having the sopranos with the melody, with the other parts harmonizing, and then the altos take over here, and the sopranos switch role. And so the dynamics change as well to make sure that they know, right, I'm now a backing part, so I'm going to pull back a little bit, and the sopranos will step forward. So you'll be able to, did you have to go to jail? And then the altos go, put your house on up for sale, and then everyone together, did you get a good lawyer? And this will work really well with some choreography. It'll even be something simple as people like leaning forwards a bit, like they're telling, they're exchanging secrets, or like this is some pretty intimate thing you'd ask of someone. Did you have to go to jail? Put your house on up for sale. One of the really nice things about this song is the fact that a lot of like specific personal details are being shared. So you feel a bit like you're being let in on a secret. That's also, I think, a lot of the appeal of the song is the fact that there's a lot of, it's not very generic, it's very specific. And that just makes it feel like you're being let into someone's like diary. So you could have people like just crouching down a bit. Did you have to go to jail? Put your house on up for sale. Or you don't have to. Like, it's just fun to have that option. And I think MDs as well find that quite fun when they can choose to like have the singers do a bit of choreography. That might just be me, but then again, I'm a show person at heart. Okay, so Did You Get a Good Lawyer? That's choral style harmonies going up. Now here I put them in quite high range because I feel like if you have some singers who can like pull out some nice gospel chops, this is a really nice line. Like, an ascending line like that in harmony is very like characteristic of gospel music. And because this song is sort of based in blues music, I feel like that makes for like a nice, what's the word? Not enthusiastic, just like it feels like a line that should have some build and force to it. And then I repeat this little backing part from the chorus. Just kind of repeating material, but not really. It's like similar but slightly different, but it's fine because it's a different part of the song. And then I repeat the same order, almost. Sopranos, and then I thought, you know what? Why not? Let's have the baritones do it here. So before it was sopranos, altos. Now it's sopranos, baritones. And yeah, I often say avoid doing stuff that's similar but slightly different. But because the lyrics are different and because it's a short section and it's not like you're doing the same section with one or two notes changed, I feel like this will be fine. And then the baritones also get a bit more melody, so they'll be happy. So they do this. Hope you find the right man who'll fix it for you. And again, choral style harmonies. And then I've got a nice little bit of chords here with a sforzando, fortepiano with an accent. And this little thing here means that I want them to carry on without breathing into the next phrase. Are you shopping anywhere? And here I go all out with the gospel harmonies. So this is 3-part gospel harmonies moving up and down. And sopranos have the melody. It's fairly high range, particularly if they choose to use a belt or mixed style approach so that you get that full sound. And if you have any men who want to do it, this is also roughly where they might be able to get a bit more like force out of their sound. Are you shopping anywhere? Change the color of your hair. Are you busy? And here I decided let's have a little bit of like echoing. So are you busy, sopranos, then altos repeat the rhythm of busy on their notes. and baritones on their note. They're always just singing the same notes, but with different rhythms. Again, just creating a bit of interest, creating some movement where there is just like a gap in the original song. And then the same gospel style harmonies. Did you have to pay that fine that you were dodging all the time? Are you still dizzy? And again, with the echoing of dizzy. Dizzy, 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 dizzy. Sopranos, altos, baritones. And then a small transition chord here to go back to the pre-chorus. And then I just repeat exactly what I've done before. So while, I'm not exactly doing anything outrageous or special, there's just like changing things up a little bit, giving everyone something to do. And this will mean that you're more likely to get an engaging performance because they're like, I have some fun stuff I'm doing. I get to sing a bit of melody, and everyone loves to sing a bit of melody. And here, as I said during my the earlier segment, I decided I wanted to go quiet with everyone singing in unison octaves, and so they just do with the bass line. Nothing particularly outrageous. It's just exactly what the optional solo was doing earlier. And here I just wrote in a little nice piano part. I think in the original track you have like these nice little bells. So I thought, you know what, let's put that in. And again, unison octaves. And we have harmonies coming in, going into the pre-chorus. And here I decided to continue with my gospel style harmonies, because why not? Earlier in the song, you had the baritones doing it and then the sopranos doing it with a bit of harmonization from the other parts. Here, choral style harmonies. And again, it's just straight harmonies. It's not anything particularly outrageous. And then, why don't you come on over? I decided, okay, you know what? Let's just repeat the material from earlier, just because this particular section, why don't you come on over, Valerie, is a little bit tricky to harmonize because the sopranos are singing a B flat, and that would be the 6th on this chord. So a little bit of music theory. If you have a dominant chord, you should put the 3rd and the 5th in, because those are very defining notes in a dominant chord. The notes in the chord that tell you what chord it is. If you want to put the 6th in, you kind of have to put it either sort of in the middle or right at the top. You don't want to put it at the bottom, because that means that the 7th will be above it, and you'll get either you'll get a semitone clash, or worse, you'll get a minor 9th clash. If you have the melody on a 6th, it's probably a good idea to put that at the top and the 7th a bit further down, because then you get a major 7th interval between these, which is fine. So to spice up the last chorus, I did a few things. First of all, I have them all singing loudly, and I changed it so that they're doing why don't you come on over, Valerie, 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 Valerie. So just you might say I'm just adding in some interjections, and they're all in gospel style harmony. Quite high tessitura. If you have any belters, they'll love it. And I decided to cut out the piano on the first round through this repeat. The last chorus happens twice, and I thought, right, well, let's just have the singers do their thing twice and just have the piano drop out. And then they're all doing hand claps on 2 and 4, and you get this like uplifting, cool chorus where they're just singing acappella. And that just happens a tone up here. Valerie, Valerie, Valerie. Exactly like I just sang it. And just repeating it. Yeah, and I just took a simple idea and just went with it. And that pretty much solved my entire last chorus. And not changed the piano part. I mean, the piano player has to do this fairly tricky rhythm, but on the plus side, it's just that same rhythm for the whole song. And so once they've learnt it, they don't have to worry about it anymore, because they're just playing the same chords and the same rhythms. Simple. And here you have a repeat. So I decided to throw the piano back in here. There is always a danger, if you choose to have an a cappella section, that the singers will sink in pitch. Because this one's quite short, and also it's quite strong and high in their range, so they're not like having to like hold back, they'll just go for it. I think it's okay. Small tip from me is if ever you start a song with just a cappella and then instruments come in later, don't. Unless you know for certain that your singers are able to stay in pitch the whole way until the instruments come in, there is always the chance that they'll sink in pitch, and it's going to be really obvious when the other instrument's coming and they're like, whoa, we're in a new key now. So yeah, be very careful about a cappella sections in instrumental music or music that uses instruments. In this case, it's quite short, so they can't really manage to sync that much before the piano comes back in. Right, so they do that again, and then we go into the second ending here, and then I just chose to have the same ending from the track, harmonized again in choral style harmonies, and just resolving down to a tonic, or a major 7th chord with the 7th here at the top, like Amy Winehouse does it. And that's pretty much the whole arrangement. Before I can consider this arrangement finished, there's one more thing I have to do, which is the layout. And I'm just going to do that quickly and show you what I've done, and then we'll finish for today. Okay. The layout's pretty much finished, and yeah, it's all looking pretty good. So you'll see in the beginning here, I've hidden all the staves I don't need. So this is something that saves space on the page. Always make sure that every instrument involved needs to be on the first system, always, because it quickly tells people what instruments are being used in the piece. So even though technically the sopranos and baritones aren't really doing much here except the finger snaps, you still leave this here to show the conductor that yes, all the parts are involved in this piece. On the next system, however, I take away everything that's not needed because it saves space, and it's just soloist and piano until page 2, and here we have all the parts coming in, and I've used the guitar notation. If you don't know where to find that, you go to Appearance, Engraving Rules, and Chord Symbols, and then it's just Chord Text and Diagrams, which is selected by default. However, you need to select this option. Only show chord diagrams on guitar notation staves. Just uncheck that, and you'll get these tabs. And as I've said before, I can't vouch for the accuracy of these tabs because I don't play guitar. But it's fine because a good guitarist will look at them, be a bit like, this is a bad voicing, and I'm going to do this one instead. And then they solve your problem for you. Yeah, there's not really much to say here. It all fits nicely on how many pages? 8 pages. Yeah, occasionally it gets a little bit tight here. I am sort of a fan of saving paper and not using too much whenever possible. But you see here, for instance, it is getting pretty tight. It's just about fine. If it doesn't overlap, it's pretty much, I mean, ideally it should be like this, where it's like very clearly separated. I can kind of accept this, but it's just on the border of what I find acceptable. But yeah, there's not much else to say. I've got the name on the top, the name of the song on the top of every page. There's a little indent here to show that this is the coda. And yeah, this arrangement's pretty much finished. And there you have it. That's how you arranged Valerie by Amy Winehouse for mixed choir with piano accompaniment. Be sure to leave me a comment if you have any questions, and share this video with your friends if you think they'll find it useful. And I'll see you in the next episode.